Hello and welcome to the Note to File podcast, a collection of interviews, best practices, and candid commentary for clinical research sites. I'm your host, Brad Hightower, founder of Hightower Clinical, a clinical trial site network providing consulting services and end-to-end personalized research infrastructure to physicians with no upfront costs. You can learn more at hightowerclinical.com. If you're enjoying the Note to File podcast, we encourage you to rate, review, and subscribe to the show so we can continue to provide quality content to a larger audience. All show notes, episode transcripts, and contact information can be found at notetofilepodcast.com. Today's guest is Danielle Coe. Danielle is an experienced clinical research professional who's bringing diversity and much-needed change to the clinical research industry. She's helped countless professionals increase their reach and opportunities through Black women in clinical research and Black men in clinical research. Presently, the organization has almost 6,000 active members. Their mission is to educate, empower, support, and help Black women and men thrive in the clinical research industry. In this episode, we discuss Danielle's journey from the lab to the clinic, Danielle's discovery of the lack of diversity in the clinical trial workforce, and the importance of marketing yourself. Without further ado, Danielle Coe. All right, Danielle, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Brad, for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. I've seen you on LinkedIn. You're putting out a lot of content and being very active in the research community. I think that's awesome, and love to have people like you on. So thank you again.
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely the place to be. I tell everyone that LinkedIn is the recruiter's hangout.
Yeah, it's I don't do a lot of personal social media aside from LinkedIn, and it's been really surprising how many people in the clinical research industry are on there. Again, it's always surprises me because it's sort of a big, small world, I like to say. So you end up coming across a lot of the same people, and it's nice to finally talk to you.
Yeah, same here. I'm a big fan of Note to File.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I like to start every episode kind of the same. Like to hear a little bit about people's backgrounds, kind of what brought them to clinical research. I think that's always very informative and sort of enlightening at times. So if you would, tell us a bit about your journey and how you kind of started out and bring us to where you are today.
Absolutely. So I graduated from Clark Atlanta University with a bachelor's degree in biology. So when I first attended college, my dreams were to be a doctor. But once I was in college, I decided that I wanted to go a different route. So at the time, there weren't a lot of opportunities available. So it was either go to medical school or work in the lab. And so since I didn't go to medical school, I ended up working in the lab. And nothing against people that work in the lab, but I knew that just wasn't for me. And so I was looking for different options. And I remember coming across one of my college classmates, and she told me about clinical research. And I had never heard about clinical research at this time. And I remember she told me that you get to work from home, you get to travel, it's super flexible. So I was immediately interested in clinical research. So I made it my mission to start teaching myself about clinical research. But at the time, I realized there weren't really a lot of resources. So I went on YouTube and I ran across a couple of people that were talking about clinical research, but I just realized there weren't a lot of resources. So, one of the videos that I came across, they were talking about pretty much that you had to step outside of your comfort zone in order to get into the clinical research industry. And so I started cold calling clinical research clinics from going on clinicaltrials.gov. And so I know, a lot of times this is scary to kind of step outside of your norm and step outside of your box and your comfort level. But when I reached out to the clinics, the clinical research clinics at the time, they really were, receptive. And just so happened the clinical research that I reached out to told me to come in so that I could shadow. And so I ended up going in for interview. I thought it was going to be an interview, but they ended up giving me the position. And so from there, it really created the foundation that I needed in order to learn more about clinical research. So I got to see how the clinic was functioning on a site level, how they were doing their informed consent process and how they were selecting the subjects for the clinical trial studies and looking at the different systems, the EDC systems and CTMS, and just looking at the regulatory binder. So that really gave me that foundation that I needed in the clinical research industry to get started. So from there, I applied for a position as a clinical research coordinator. in breast oncology. And at that time, I felt like it was divine intervention because my grandmother had breast cancer. So I really felt connected to my service. And so from there, I was a coordinator for about 3 years. And I just remember wanting to do more. And, always working at a CRO was one of my next goals that I wanted for myself. So I was rejected from multiple CROs. And so I took a position working with, it was Cognizant, but it was working with Verily and it was Google. And so I was a clinical trial coordinator from like working there. But this at the time was more like with medical devices. So I remember saying I wanted to get back to, like the clinical research. So I applied for a position as a remote site monitor at PPD. And I have been with PPD ever since.
So just to go back to the beginning there, you literally just cold called outreach to, research sites. That's how you started.
Yes.
That's awesome. I mean, and again, I think you're probably the first person I've heard that's done that. So you came out obviously very intentionally, wanted to get involved in clinical research and just took it upon yourself to go out there and see what was going on.
Yeah, because I was working at a microbiology lab. And then after that, I was working at a clinical genetics lab. And so, I just really wanted to do something that wasn't working in the lab. And, when the opportunity came up about clinical research, I jumped on it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I love the initiative that it takes to do that. Can I ask, was it a standalone private site, or was it what was the sort of model of the site?
So it was a private site in Smyrna, Georgia. And so, once I put in my once I went on clinicaltrials.gov and put in my zip code and created a list of all of the sites that were near me, it just so happened at the time that this was a Black-owned clinical research site. And so they were so open to me learning more about clinical research. And, I know, so it probably sounds crazy, but I am still connected to the clinical research coordinator that was there at the site where I did my internship. We actually both work at PPD now.
Nice. No, that's awesome. And I think that, even to sort of speak to the people out there listening, maybe trying to get into clinical research, that's a huge instructive experience there that, if you reach out and you are passionate and have some value to bring to the table, I think, the site world is a lot more receptive than you might think. If you, again, reach out and show the initiative. I think that's awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. So I know you're also the founder of Black Women in Clinical Research, correct?
Yes, I am.
So please tell me a little bit about that.
So during my experience as being a clinical research coordinator, I remember going to an investigator meeting in Chicago. And in a room of 300 people, there were only 2 Black women, including myself. So it really made me question whether or not there was a lack of diversity in the room or if there was a lack of diversity in the industry. So just remembering my struggles and how difficult it was for me to enter in the industry, I wanted to reach out to different Black women to see if some of the same experiences that they were experienced while trying to get into the clinical research industry. So I never imagined from starting a Facebook group, because that's exactly what it was. I started a Facebook group just to share resources, to share tips and some of the struggles that, other Black women were facing with getting involved in the clinical research industry, since there is a lack of diversity in the clinical research workforce. So this Facebook group started to really blossom, and, a demand, with having more members, the demand increased. And so we started to have to offer different services because we realized that we needed to help more people. So we started offering resume reviews, interview prep, career coaching, mock interviews, LinkedIn help. Like if your LinkedIn wasn't up to date or you didn't know exactly what to say in your LinkedIn summary. So we were able to offer all of these different resources for a lot of the members. And once we started offering these resources and providing Zoom meetings that talked about the different careers in the clinical research industry, because a lot of times people are really only focused on the CRA. And I would say that's probably the most talked about career in the clinical research industry. So we wanted to make it known and talk about all the other career possibilities. So every month we usually have a different topic where we talk to people that's in the industry and just get their feedback on their position and some of their day-to-day responsibilities. So once we started opening up these different opportunities for the members in the group, this really changed, the I got the job post. So the I got the job post, everyone who has received a job, they pretty much are excited to tell everyone that they received a new job. So in the group, they will post, I got the job. And a lot of times I'll share that on my LinkedIn. But what we noticed is once we provided those resources, that this equipped people who may not even never had a job in clinical research to be able to get hired and have a new career in clinical research.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things about that that strike me. One is that you're creating a supportive community, and I think my experience has been really only exclusively on the site side, but I think that people at the site level aren't always that collaborative with each other. They aren't always that cooperative. So again, to sort of create that support where it may not otherwise be, and then I think to even look at the bigger picture, we all know the emphasis and importance of diversity in clinical trials as far as subject recruitment goes. But I think obviously fairly intuitive way to help fix that is to diversify the clinical trial workforce as well.
Absolutely. They say that, especially when it comes to subjects, they feel more comfortable when there's people that they can relate to, people that look like them. So I feel it's definitely connected. So increasing the clinical research workforce is connected to increasing the diversity in the clinical trial population. So once we can kind of have goals and set those goals to make sure that we're making a difference when it comes to the population and the diversity in the clinical trials, and I think that we can really make a shift.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I know there's a lot of talk right now about, decentralizing trials, and I think there's obviously a space for that, and it's appropriate in some cases, but I think you're certainly going to sort of win more hearts and minds by sort of doing the opposite, instead making it a very personal and relatable experience. And I think a lot of that, again, goes back to just what you're doing and helping to diversify the workforce. And just like you said, having people like you talking to you and informing you, educating about clinical research. So again, I think that's an amazing initiative that you're undertaking right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just trying to figure out different ways and what we can do as a group and, different initiatives that we can get involved in to help really make a difference in this industry. So, creating those collaborations and partnerships with CROs and pharmaceutical companies to create that pipeline so that it's not where a lot of people are trying to get in, but they can't get in. And so actually talking to the members and letting them know this is what the CROs are looking for on your resume. This is how this is the information that you want to make sure that you include. Here are some of your transferable skills. These are the buzzwords to use. And so a lot of times we tell a lot of people in the group that to sign up for a free GCP course so that you're knowledgeable when you have an interview, you're able to tell the interviewer how your skills align to the position that they're hiring for.
Yeah. And again, I think that's a undervalued thing. I think a lot of times especially in clinical research, there's not maybe so much of an emphasis on really marketing yourself. So again, I think that's sort of overlooked sometimes, especially in our field. Again, I think it's understated and underutilized. So, any edge you can get is huge. So I think, again, just making people aware of that is a great step.
Yeah, I really believe in this industry. Some of the things that we're lacking is we don't have mentorship. We don't have like a mentorship program. And that's why Black Women in Clinical Research has started the mentorship program, because a lot of times you need that support from someone who's more experienced in the industry that can give you tips and tools that will help you, when you're searching for a job or when you're trying to level up in a new position. So, the mentorship, we've had so many people that were interested in the mentorship, actually more than what we intended. And so I believe it was close to 100 people that were interested in being mentored. And we had to turn people away because we knew the numbers were too large, and we definitely wanted to have enough mentors to mentor the members. And so the program has definitely taken off and has helped so many different people receive that new job. And I just know that it's so needed and necessary when it comes to the clinical research industry, because having that person that you can connect with. And I know I talked to my own mentor, and she told me that a lot of times people think that they need to seek out or almost like put out a warning like, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. But a lot of times she said the mentor is in your own backyard, and you don't realize that you're closer to the people that you need to connect with to help you. And a lot of times you don't really have to search very far to find someone that's a mentor and that can help you.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. And I think of, the almost an overwhelming majority of people I've talked to have started out their careers with, no real guidance, no even idea what they're doing. So again, I think, the fact that you you need more mentors is a good sign that you're on the right track, right? That there's a gap somewhere in the system and you're trying to fill it. And I mean, this is how we are able to innovate. We need well educated and well informed people, working across the sites and not just the sites. Again, I sometimes have a little myopic view since I work at a site, but all across the industry. Again, I can't tell you how many times I've heard the story that people are sort of left to figure it out, and that's not that's an injustice to the system, right? Like, we're doing something very important. Isn't it in our best interest that we're all as capable and informed as we can possibly be?
Yeah, absolutely. Clinical research is like a secret society. A lot of people don't know about it. Only people that really do know about it are involved in the sciences or involved in STEM. But once you step outside of the STEM arena, a lot of people don't know about clinical research. Like I know recently spoke with, organization that focuses on people who have their MBA. They had no idea about clinical research. So I think a lot of times we have to realize, step outside of our own little bubble and to connect with different people, because there's so many different careers that fall under the clinical research umbrella that you just don't need a science background in order to be involved in clinical research. So, that person that has their PhD, that person that might be in statistics, those are all the different, some of the different people that other people might not realize, okay, they play a part in the clinical research industry also, with like the data managers and the project managers. There's so many different areas and background that a person could have, and it doesn't need to be science, but we don't really tap into that.
Yeah, I think it is sort of the beauty and the curse of the industry. I mean, I tell people, and I think I've seen you have the same sentiment, that whatever you like, there's something in clinical research for you. Whatever your interest is, it's there somewhere. The downside, I think, is that it's such a sort of difficult industry to navigate, where it's difficult to have the perspective because everything is sort of siloed and sectioned off from each other in a lot of ways. So again, even if you know something about clinical research, there's maybe a whole other aspect that you have no idea about, right? I mean, it's very sort of discombobulated.
Absolutely. And you can be in the clinical research industry and not really know what the data managers are doing or the project managers are doing. If you haven't really talked to someone and know their day-to-day responsibilities. So, like it's we're connected, but we're not connected, if that makes sense.
It makes 100% sense to me. But I think, again, I see it all the time. Again, it's people in the same industry who still don't speak the same language. I mean, I think that's certainly not helping us, move forward more quickly. But again, I think it's something that we're starting to see addressed more, and even through people like yourself that are trying to be a resource, because it's getting better, but there's still not exactly a ridiculous, overwhelming amount of resources that really get granular and tell you, help you know what's what. Right. I think there's a lot of, as you alluded to earlier, there's a lot more emphasis on sort of the sponsor and CRO side, especially. But I think, like you said, you experienced, if you want to go from a coordinator to a CRA, it's not the easiest jump to make. There's a lot of rejection and a lot of grind to get there.
Yes, it was very difficult. And, a lot of times I'm sure that there's people that are on the path. And if there's anyone that's listening and just letting them know not to give up. And I know the journey can be hard and difficult, but there are so many people in the clinical research industry that want to help you. So being able to reach out to different people and just connecting with them And if someone doesn't respond to your message when you reach out to them, there are so many other people that are willing to help. So a lot of times I know it's scary to put yourself out there, and a lot of times you send a message and someone doesn't follow up, and it's okay. You just have to keep it moving and just put one foot in front of the other and just realize that there is someone that's going to help you.
Yep. No, I could not agree more. It's at some point it almost becomes a little bit of a numbers game to, get that right connection. I mean, it's just like recruiting patients in a trial, right? I mean, you have to talk to 100 to enroll 10. It goes the same way for just about everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about, I know you've transitioned somewhat recently to the CRO side. I guess tell me a little bit about your transition. And I think, again, there's a lot of interest out there amongst people who work at a site level who are interested in going to the CRO side. Did you find it to be an easy transition, or was it more difficult than you expected?
I feel like it was easier for me once I had my resume reviewed. And so, a lot of times what I notice, and myself included, that because you look at your resume all the time, you feel like your resume is right. You don't always see the errors that, might be present on your resume. So even if you don't pay for a professional resume reviewer, just having someone else to look over your resume, because they're able to maybe pick out something that you didn't see or some type of change that that you weren't aware of. So and also Grammarly, like I started using that because my resume writer told me, use that to make sure, because there's a lot of things that you might not catch. So you want to always have like a double check. You want to have, check and make sure that your resume is good, and making sure that you have those buzzwords. Once I started including my experience that I left off in my resume, that's when I started receiving calls, and when I had multiple offers. So I had to choose who I wanted to work for. So I think if you can just really display, all of your skills on your resume, and realize that your resume is a walking introduction to the doors opening up for you at the CRO at the pharmaceutical company, and you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward. A lot of times I know some people will have their picture on the resume. I don't recommend your picture, or will have their hobbies on their resume. So it's just different things that people are not aware of. And a lot of times with the applicant tracking system, you have to submit a Word document because the PDF won't always pick up all of that information.
Right.
I know I talked to a pharmaceutical company. They said that they have changed the system where they're able to pick up the words. Their system is able to pick up the word on the PDF. But I am not sure all of the companies have switched over. So I just always recommend people to submit a Word document just to make sure that all of your words are being picked up. The last thing you want to do is submit a PDF resume and not get picked up from the system.
That's a great point, and something I've never thought of. If they're not doing very good OCR on those PDFs, then maybe not be picking up the keywords that you're laying down.
Yeah,
I like that. So another question I like to ask every guest on is, what are some tools or resources that maybe you use in your everyday? It doesn't even have to be clinical research specific, but whether it's software or a book or whatever the case may be, what's something that you find indispensable for yourself?
my calendar. And, I know everyone's not able to have this, but I recently hired an assistant, and she has helped me tremendously. I hired 2 assistants that live in Africa, and they have helped me turn around, organization is definitely, I would say, is the key, especially, even in your personal life and even in the clinical research industry. Being organized and writing things down. Sometimes I write things down so much that I see it on my laptop. I see it on my calendar. I have 2 calendars that's up. I have one calendar for Black women in clinical research, and then I have my personal calendar. So just making sure that you have the tools to help you stay organized. And it can definitely be overwhelming if you don't have a system in place. So I would say my calendar is what definitely keeps me on top of things.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm recently just switched to using Calendly to book conversations and things like that, even meetings with people. And I know that's a a small thing, but it finds the time on your calendar. You can block it out, but you're not having to go back and forth with somebody trying to book and schedule things. And it's just a really nice tool. Because I'm like you, I'm at a point now where I can't. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist, right?
Right.
I'm not going to remember it.
It's too much.
So it is too much, especially with everything else going on in people's lives. It gets to be crazy. So, but really, it goes back to the bigger, I think, theme, which is just organization. Period. Whatever that means for you. But yeah, I think the calendar is a sort of a perfect and understated resource that people don't oftentimes organize well enough.
Yes, I agree. And with working at the CRO, the color coding your emails and just getting used to that, and making sure that, okay, well, this color represents this, and this color represents this. So
and we have probably we're in an industry that has a overwhelming amount of detail oriented people. So there's probably a lot of email color coding and calendar organizing out there.
Yes.
I love it. All right. Well, Danielle, where can people find you online?
So I am on LinkedIn, and it's Danielle Coe. And we also have our Facebook group, our LinkedIn group. We're on Instagram at BWICR20. We're on Twitter. We have a what is it called? It's not Snapchat. What is the other one? TikTok. We have a TikTok account,
nice.
But I can't dance. So I'm leaving that up to some of my younger members to help. And so, yeah, we're pretty much everywhere. If you search Black women in clinical research, you can find us.
Very good. I'll make sure we link everything on the show notes on the website. Anything else you want to say before we go?
I just want to say thank you, Brad, for having me. I really appreciate, talking and sharing about my journey, and hopefully that this can help someone else who is interested in getting involved in clinical research, or, just knowing that there's opportunities available for everyone. So don't give up, keep trying, reach out to as many people as you need in order to get the support.
All right. I love it. Thank you, Danielle.
You are so welcome.
Thank you for listening to the Note to File podcast. All show notes, episode transcripts, and contact information can be found at notetofilepodcast.com. And again, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks again for listening.